how do I even begin this rant? Because we need to talk about a very negative topic today, an issue that I feel like is very bad for gamers. Sony wants to raise the price of video games up to $80 or even $100 per game. This is completely bonkers, and to be honest, I'm very not happy about it, but I want to talk about all the intricacies of this, why they're trying to jack up the cost, why they think this is a solution, and why this is even a problem in the first place. But let's get into it. Hi, I'm DreamcastGuy. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Now, let me just start off with where exactly I stand. I have talked about this a lot over the course of my 10 years of being a YouTuber. I want games to get cheaper, not more expensive. But I mean this quite literally. I want to lower production costs. I want to try and get games out there that maybe don't have the best graphics, but are actually fun to play. Video games, for the most part, keep getting more expensive in every single way. Controllers are $70 to $100, the consoles are $500, and the games themselves are even $70 when they used to be $40 or $50 or $60. It's crazy that, like, comparing it to the stuff I grew up with, like being obsessed with the Game Boy Advanced and loving stuff like classic Sega Genesis, it's weird that games keep getting more costly when they're not really getting better. But here's something that came out yesterday from a big leak, which is that PlayStation is trying to sell their games going forward in parts, making it so that each individual part is only $50 instead of like $60 for a disc. But now, in order to get the entire experience, you're going to have to pay a lot more than your standard $70 price tag that we currently have. For example, Spider-Man 3 is going to be in 3 parts. 2 parts for the main game and a multiplayer that's sold separately for a grand total of $150. Now, I want to talk about this, where this information came from, and verify it. I've actually looked at it myself, but here it is real quick. So, essentially, there was the huge Insomniac hack. There was a data breach, people cracked into it, and they posted almost 2 terabytes of confidential data. And part of this was all these financial slides, which were essentially them talking about how to make more profit. Because PlayStation is in an odd spot. They make a ton of cash. They are very big, very lucrative, but their production costs have been going up. Actually making these games just keeps getting more expensive. Wolverine is costing hundreds of millions of dollars. Ratchet and Clank on PlayStation 5. Rift Apart is an amazing game. Technically, even though that sold millions of copies, it didn't make enough money. Essentially, what's happening right now is that games are just getting so pricey to make. Not all games, obviously. I mean, cool indies like Dredge and Sea of Stars, Hades. There's a lot of stuff coming out that's just as fun as big budget games, even if they're not as graphically impressive. But this weird obsession with chasing the biggest, craziest graphics, the most visually appealing experiences, clearly is starting to create a bubble. See, Sony, in their own internal reporting, said they spent $350 million making Spider-Man 2 on the PlayStation 5. The original Spider-Man on PlayStation 4 cost $110 million. That means they spent 3 times the amount for a game that is better, but it ain't 3 times better. Now, this is apparently what they're terrified of, is that their games cannot be profitable. They cannot stay liquid. They can't actually just stay an independent thing if they're not able to generate more cash per big exclusive. Now, a lot of people are talking about this is just completely insane, and this is a long-term issue. If a highly successful and respected developer under a successful console manufacturer is worried about breaking even on one of their most successful games, AAA development is just not safe. None of these developers are safe. Certainly none of the Western ones. Capcom and Square reuse assets at least. It's no longer a fringe conspiracy that AAA development is inherently unsustainable without massive changes. It is now an undeniable fact. So, here's what we're getting at. PlayStation has found themselves to be in a very weird spot that I do think is self-inflicted. PlayStation is massive. The PS5 brand especially is just bonkers. I mean, they've already sold 50 million PlayStation 5s, which, I mean, I'm still just as shocked about. It doesn't seem possible, to be quite honest, but obviously the PlayStation 5 is selling crazy, crazy numbers. But a lot of people are just discussing, okay, so PS5 is way out in front. That means they're selling the most games, right? Well, not always the case. Their stuff is popular. Spider-Man 2 sold 5 million copies in 11 days, so that's definitely huge. But how is that not enough? How is this just something that's making it so they can barely survive? I guess I'm confused by the leaks that talk about PlayStation trying to figure out how to fire employees quicker, how to cut cost in development, how they can shut down possibly particular studios to make it so the more profitable ones stay in the green longer. That's the weirdness of this. Insomniac Games is one of their best. Insomniac is their money maker. PlayStation is so heavily reliant on the Spider-Man brand. If Spider-Man isn't profitable, it's no longer a video game problem. It's no longer a gaming problem. It's a business problem. And in my opinion, this is not the solution. Trying to sell your own games off in parts to make extra cash off of your dedicated fan base, it doesn't just feel malicious, it feels stupid. This does not feel like the solution to this problem. But I guess I really don't know what is. I am an old school gamer. I've grown up and played a lot of games that had bad graphics and great stories. The original Final Fantasy VII, a lot of those people kind of look like Lego blocks. Still one of my favorite games of all time. This year, I completely loved Octopath Traveler 2. Doesn't exactly have the most incredible graphics you've ever seen, and yet it's a damn good experience. My point here is that I think as an industry, we need to find a way to move away from this obsession with hyper-realistic graphics. Some games having it is fine, like GTA having crazy graphics, Red Dead having crazy graphics, Cyberpunk having crazy graphics, like that kind of stuff is understandable. But I think we're getting to a point where we're hitting diminishing returns visually, and we've completely passed diminishing returns financially. If your most popular game on the most popular console in the world is your biggest selling game of the year and you're still broke, something is wrong. I don't know. It's a complicated issue, but jacking up the price, turning your debt into players' issues just doesn't seem like the correct solution, at least not to me. What do you guys think about this? Is this something that you feel like can be solvable? Are you willing to pay $100 for a big game? I guess we're going to find out. I mean, if frickin' Rockstar Games drops GTA 6 and it's $100, I mean, I feel like it's still going to sell, but I don't know. I just don't like the idea of the most expensive hobby that I already love getting more pricey. 10 years ago, I made a video saying make games cheaper, and the example I gave 10 years ago in a video was essentially asking if they sold Call of Duty in two $30 chunks, a $30 chunk for the campaign and a $30 chunk for the single player, would it be more lucrative? Would it end up getting more people that just wanted one or the other to actually buy into it? And I still think about that. I still think about a way to sell people exactly what they want. But this, in my mind, is the opposite direction. It's chopping things up to make them more expensive instead of more accessible. But that's just my 2 cents. I love you guys a bunch. Please like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. Obviously, we're coming up to the end of the year, so at some point I might disappear for a bit. And if I do, it's just because I'm hanging out with my friends. Don't really do stuff with the family, but I got a lot of friends that are going to be hanging out and swapping gifts. So, going to be a good time. Happy holidays to y'all. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.